to Hey, I Like, the podcast where we talk about all the things that make our little neurodivergent brains go bonkers. I am your host, Jess. I use she, they pronouns, and I am joined here today by my lovely friend. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Pluto. I go by they, them. And I think today we're talking about Ghost.
We are indeed. Now, forgive me, I do not know what Ghost is. I am very sorry. I have heard all your rants about the subject. I am still not sure what it is you're actually talking about. So maybe let's start with that.
Ghost is a band, which seems very simple, but if it was that simple, I wouldn't have this podcast episode about it, now would I?
No.
So, in 2006, Ghost was formed in Sweden, and it was formed by Tobias Forge and a couple of his friends, under the premise that for as long as the Catholic Church has existed, there has been a satanic church worshipping Satan and sinning in his name, and now that church has formed a band, and you can listen to their music.
That... what?
Exactly.
Yeah!
So, like, there's two main things I want to get off right now, is that while the lore of this band is, like, very satanic and based in, like, a church that's almost a cult in a lot of ways, and, in, like, these deep, like, Satanist elements, none of the people involved are Satanists. Like, while the songs are in universe supposed to be, like, recruiting new Satanists into this fake satanic church, that's not the goal of, like, the actual artists. And another thing about Ghost is that everybody's identity is, sort of what we call masked. So, the only person whose real name I'll be using is Tobias Forge, who is the frontman and the creator of Ghost. Everybody else, I'm only going to be using their stage names, and that's because a lot of fans really don't want to know, like, real people behind what we'll learn are the ghouls, and other stuff like that, just to keep the lore as, like, the fun part, which is fine, it's fun. Whatever floats your boat.
Yeah, definitely. Because, like, especially when you see all this stuff on the internet about these, like, parasocial relationships with real people that fans often make, it's like, maybe not knowing everything about these people is better, actually.
Absolutely.
Much as we love knowing everything about our topics of interest. Maybe leave these real life people to do their real life things.
Yeah. That's part of why I haven't, like, looked too deeply into the actual life of Tobias Forge, and especially the ghouls, because we'll get into the ghouls. Yeah. I know that means nothing to you now, but they are so special to me. I love them all, but it very much is, like, a lot of them very much value their privacy, and Tobias Forge very much values his privacy, which is why for as long as possible, all of their identities were a very closely guarded secret. For 7 years, no one knew really who was in Ghost.
Wow. That's so long!
Okay. It was so long. It was really... actually, no, not 7 years. It was 11. Yeah. It was 11 years. Okay. So, most of what I'm going to be talking about is in-universe lore. So just like, absorb that now. All of this is fake. The dates are real. The locations are real for the most part. But all of this is, like, in-universe. None of these events actually happened. stuff like that.
Yeah.
I will say a few things that happened IRL because it does very much impact the band, but I'll point those out when they happen. So I told you what Ghost is IRL, and now I want to talk about what Ghost is like in the lore. So in universe, the band takes its name from the Ghost Project, which was an initiative by the Satanic Church to recruit more people. And this project was to start a band and get big and attract people to the church and spread the message of Satan through the songs. And this started in the late 1960s. For sure, we know that this happened at least in 1969, but it was very short-lived. And it was trying to ride on the wave of like that British invasion with like the Beatles and stuff like that, where rock music was getting really big. You had groupies, you had a whole bunch of female fans, right? You had like this like mania. You had like Beatlemania, and so they were trying to ride that wave and kind of get those people and recruit based off of that as like a new tactic. So that happened in the 60s, and the frontman at the time was Papa Emeritus Zero, who we'll be calling Nil. And we know he did at least one show in the 1960s, but because of Satanic Panic, the Ghost Project was written off. And so Ghost went underground for like 40 years until 2006, which is IRL when the band started. Nil's oldest son, Primo, becomes Papa, and the band starts up again. We don't know why they decided to bring the Ghost Project back, but they did. So that's the intro. And we didn't know most of that until 2019, I would say. We didn't get
Imagine just being really into this band and having no idea how they started or who they are or anything, and it's just like, what?
Mm-hmm.
What an origin story, though. Like,
it's fantastic because they're like, yeah, we started this band in the 60s, which they very much didn't. Like, it really did start in 2006. But to be like, yes, the father of the first Papa that you know was like trying to be a Beatle and be a rock star. And that is the reason why we have Ghost now, is because of that, is insane to talk about. So you may have noticed already that I've talked about papas in the plural. And I didn't mean that in like a father sense. Well, one of them very much is a father. That is not how you get the title Papa. So like I said earlier, Ghost is a satanic church based off of a Catholic church, right? So the Catholic Church has the Pope. The Satanic Church needs their own Pope. So they came up with Papa, which is just the Italian word for Pope.
Love it.
Every Papa we know of is an emeritus, which means retired, which is actually pretty interesting that Tobias Forge came up with the name Papa Emeritus before Benedict retired and chose the name Papa Emeritus. So I don't know, that's very interesting. And then every Papa also has a number. So the proper names for all of them are Papa Emeritus 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. But obviously that gets very confusing.
Yeah.
So the fans, like as a whole, have given them each a name based on the Italian word for that number. So I will 9 times out of 10 call them Nil, Primo, Secondo, and Terzo. And Papa 4 is Copia, which is a whole other bag of worms, and we will get to him. His name does not mean four.
Interesting.
Copia, I can't even talk about Copia right now. He's got so many theories and lore speculations going on right now, and they're still putting out like information about Copia that it quite literally is like anything that I say today about Copia could tomorrow they could release a new like chapters video and it could all be like invalidated. I'm not even kidding.
This is just the wildest band music anything that I've like ever heard. But then I'm not really like into the music scene in general, so if there is another band out there that has just as crazy a story behind it, I wouldn't know. But like I'm pretty sure no one is going to top this whole saga.
Okay. So Ghost is structured around eras. There are 5 eras in total. The 5th one is the present one, and we don't know when it will end. But it's probably going to end soon. There's a lot of speculation about when that will happen, but like I said, anything can be invalidated in like 2 minutes, because Tobias Ford decided to post something that scars the fandom as a whole. So I'm just going to go in order, because that makes sense. So the first era is Era 1, or Era Opus. It was from 2006 to 2012, and this is the real start of the band. This is where everything was made. This is when they came up with all of the songs. They didn't have all this lore at the time, obviously, but they had like an idea. They had like a skeleton. The band is led by Papa Emeritus I, Primo, who we'll later learn is the oldest son of Nil. They released their first studio album, Opus Eponymous, October 18th, 2010. So they had been doing like 4 years of shows and like small little things before they released their first thing. They did release like a small EP before this with a few of their songs, including Elizabeth, which is one of the best songs, I believe, on Opus. I don't think even Spotify has that little like EP. I think they just have Opus on there.
Yeah, Spotify's selection is sometimes not fantastic.
You have to remind me when we get to Meloria to tell you more about Spotify's selection, because I have a gripe.
Who doesn't have a gripe with Spotify?
They start with very small shows in Scandinavia. Oh, I have to say, the documentation of, like, Primo's era and Secundo's era, the next one, are so limited. Primo's especially, there just wasn't a big fan base at the time, so not a lot of recordings, and also because this was 2006 to 2012, obviously, like, not everybody had, like, great camera phones and stuff like that, and it wasn't, like, nature to record at that time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's just not a lot of great recordings, but I saw these horrible videos recently of people booing Primo at a live show because he was like opening for someone and they didn't like him, and I was like so sad because he's just like a kind old man. It's just oh my god, I can't even imagine.
It's like the worst thing in the world when like someone has the guts to go up on stage and like do something really cool and then they just get booed. Like, have some respect. You wouldn't stand up on that stage. It's just rude, and like, just don't do it.
Yeah, I haven't seen many other videos of that, so I don't know how often it happened, but I know it happened at least once, and yeah. So after the release of Opus Eponymous, They're nominated for a 2011 Grammys, which is a Swedish Grammy, for Best Hard Rock Album. And in early 2011, they hit the States for the first time. They do a small US tour in 2012, and in December 2012, they hold a concert in their hometown, Linköping? Something like that. It's Swedish. I like found a YouTube video where they pronounced it, and I tried my best.
Anyway,
so
ghosts. Continue.
So they do a concert in December 2012 in their hometown, and it's revealed at the end of the concert that Primo is retiring. He's stepping down. He's no longer Papa. And who is to take his place? His younger brother, the middle of the three, Secondo. So, this starts the second era. The Infest era. From 2012 to 2015. Which is led by Papa Secondo, the middle son of Nil. They release Infestissimum, which is their second studio album, in early 2013, and the troubles begin.
Well, that's an ominous name that does not remind us of Northern Ireland at all.
Oh God, no, I didn't mean to.
Pretend I didn't say anything.
Yeah, and you didn't say anything. You did this. I'm blaming you.
I'm sorry.
So IRL. These troubles are IRL. The band was recording Infest in Nashville, Tennessee, which, for you non-Americans, is very much Bible country. Like, that is the South. And when you are a satanic band in the South, you're gonna have issues. The first of which is that Infest features several songs that have prominent choir parts. One song on Infest is called Year Zero, which is one of their most popular songs. And it quite literally starts with a huge choir chanting 6 names of Satan. Which they ran into trouble because several choirs based in Nashville did not want to chant 6 names of Satan for a satanic band, no matter how much they were going to pay.
Cannot imagine why.
At this time, band was not massive, so the number also probably wasn't very expensive. But, they were not going to be like, Belial Behemoth Beelzebub, and then be like, God is our Lord, we love God. Yeah, so in 2013 in Nashville, they literally could not find a choir to sing these parts. So they had to go to Hollywood to get a choir that was willing to record these parts, which is wild to me. And
that's dedication right there.
It really is. And my first thoughts when I first heard about that was like, why would you ever think that any choir in Nashville would do that? But I forgot at the time that, when you're not American, you don't know, where the Bible country is. You don't know, how strong the people's, ideals are down there.
Yeah.
So, it's so easy to be like, oh, well, Americans aren't it's not a super ingrained Christian country, right? Except it very much is. We just lie to ourselves and say that it isn't. So yeah, so I'm like, why would you not go to Hollywood to begin with? Because that's not obvious to people who are Swedish, Pluto.
And Nashville's the home of country music. Like, there's so much music stuff going on in Nashville, Tennessee. They're like, why wouldn't you go there? Except, none of us really know what the hell is going on down
Exactly.
there. So,
Exactly. So, yeah, so that was the first thing. And then the second thing during this era was there was printing issues. Not that things were misprinted, but the printer for the CDs refused to print the album art on the deluxe edition for the US market because they described it as a 16th century art of an orgy. That's an actual quote.
okay.
Which I don't know, man. I've seen the deluxe art that they released it in Europe just fine, but obviously they didn't in America. They just used the regular art for the deluxe version as well. And I don't know how much I would describe it as a 16th century art of an orgy. Like, it's kind of tame, but I think I might have a brainworm from watching some of the shit they do on stage for this band. I mean, God. So, so that the printing issue actually caused the release to be pushed back like a whole week from when they actually wanted to do it.
Oh,
Um,
wow. A whole week. That's such a
it's
long
actually
time.
it's actually quite a long time because that's like you can print so many CDs in a week. So I really wonder how long it actually took them and like when they actually got an agreement with an actual printer because you can print a lot of CDs in a week. If you're like not in an agreement and you had to like rush it in like 2 days, then that would be a big explanation. But I have no idea. There's not, like I said, there's not a lot of information during this era as well, because Ghost still wasn't a very big band. But another thing they did, which is not a trouble, this is a positive, we love these videos, is they released two short mockumentary videos of they were called Propaganda, obviously a play on propaganda, and they followed Secundo like in his daily sort of not as like daily life, but like right after the performances, and he did interviews in full Italian, even though we very much know he can speak English because all of the songs are in English, and he speaks to the crowd in English. He was just being a little shit that day and decided to speak in full Italian, so that they had to get a translator for the videos. Which is still wild to me because that
Yeah.
costs money. You can't just get a translator for free.
They're committed to the bit.
He committed to the bit. He really did. So yeah, so they had the interviews, they had some on stage videos, they had some like backstage videos, and some of the famous parts of the propaganda videos are him partying it up in Las Vegas. He gets absolutely smashed. He brings two women to his hotel room. They like have a literal pillow fight. He wakes up with a hangover. Like, it's fantastic. The propaganda videos are like the first sort of snippet that we see of like the personalities of the papas. Which really expands as we like each papa. So like Primo we knew very little about. The fans have got a couple of headcanons for him that are pretty consistent, like that he likes to garden and a couple of other things. Secundo is like we got a little bit of information of him based off of these propaganda videos, but again, in the interviews, they didn't really talk a lot about the papas, and the papas didn't really do interviews. It was always a ghoul. So we never really got the personalities of the Papas until now, and this is like the start of it, and it just keeps growing. So after the propaganda videos, that was kind of like the last big thing we got from Secundo. They do a world tour, they do a few other things, but like that's kind of it. Secundo's era ended in early 2015, where he was fired by the clergy because their reasoning was that he didn't draw enough people to the church, and he didn't overthrow enough governments, and he didn't overthrow enough rival churches. So they fired the Pope, and their replacement is now Terzo, the youngest son of Nil, and this starts Era 3. Era 3 goes from early 2015 to 2018, and I would say before the current era, Era 3 is really where things pick off. They really get into notoriety, into playing these bigger venues, into not really being the openers anymore, to being their own acts. They really got big here. So in Era 3, they release Meloria, which is their third studio album, and notably, they release a single from the album, Cirrus, and that single won them a real American Grammy for Best Metal Performance. And that is what really, really, like, shot them into notoriety. They go to the Grammys, they show up, they have a great time. The crowd is not great, but they're never great to the metal performers because they're kind of outcasts versus all of these, like, rock and pop groups, right? So,
yeah,
nobody really knows the metal performers, but okay, who cares? But because of this, they get interviews, they get new spots, they get, like, new fans who are like, who the hell is Ghost? So, this is where things get way better documented. Terzo is the youngest of the Papas so far. He's supposedly only 3 months younger than Secundo. And you're asking yourself, that's not biologically possible. None of them have the same mother.
Okay.
Nil was a fuckboy. And he kind of slept around in the 60s and earlier and like his whole life. And so none of the Primo, Secundo, Terzo have the same mother, but they're all the sons of Nil, which makes them in like the papal bloodline, which is how it gets passed down. This isn't like the Catholic Pope who gets like elected by the cardinals. This is, you are part of the bloodline, which means that you get to be the Papa next, and that's it. Which comes into play later. We'll in Era 4, we'll see that how that is affected, because Terzo is the youngest of the sons of Nil, but notably we have 2 more eras after this.
Yep.
So Terzo is supposedly only 3 months younger than Secundo, but I don't believe that, because he looks several years younger than Secundo, and either way, people think that Terzo is the hottest Papa. You ever think that Terzo is the hottest Papa, or the newest Papa is the hottest Papa? And so, this was also, 2015-2018 was Tumblr's, this is like Tumblr's heyday, right? I saw so many thirst traps of Terzo in like 2015 to 2018.
Oh,
and I was like,
God.
I have no idea who this man is. And I quite literally didn't look at anything Ghost for like 4 years after that. I didn't look into him. I didn't look at anything. I just saw him all over my dashboard was this man with skull face paint and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not going to get into a bandom. I'm not going to do it. And here I am.
We always say, oh no, not going to get into this, not going to get the new special interest, and then boom. Month later, you're head deep in it, and how did you get here?
Yeah, so Terzo is like the hot boy papa. He comes in, he's all fancy. Everybody loves him, and he gets a personality. He's so like the other papas had a personality. I've said this, but because of the growth and because of all this and because of Tobias Forge becoming more comfortable and really loving the fame that he's getting by being Papa, it just becomes like so much easier to form these like real characters. So when Terzo is introduced, obviously he's replacing Secundo. Soon after, they do this mini acoustic tour to promote Meloria. And Terzo does the most iconic thing that everybody still talks about. And he whips out the kazoo of destiny. He plays a kazoo on an acoustic tour to one of the songs written by his brother Secundo, which is, the song is Ghoule or Zombie Queen. It's got 2 titles, and it's considered one of the best songs by Ghost. It's like a fan favorite, and it is not a song that you play a kazoo to.
I was gonna say, this is a rock band, yes.
This is a metal band. This is a metal band.
Kazoo?
And he plays a kazoo. There's videos of this where he does it several times in several different places, and the ghouls behind him who are playing like the acoustic guitar are like shaking their head, and they're just like, this is not what I signed up for. This is not a metal band, sir. But we love him for it, and now he's forever associated with a kazoo.
The kazoo of destiny. It even has a name.
It has a name.
Who named the kazoo?
I don't know if the fans named it, but I'm pretty sure I've seen video of Terzo referring to the kazoo as the kazoo of destiny. And that might just be like a fever dream I had recently writing all of this up. So they do like proper tours in the US and in Europe. And like the other papas, Terzo would, talk to the crowd, do crowd work, while they're transitioning between songs. And he did like 2 notable things. At almost every show, he would talk about the birds and the bees, and he'd teach the crowd the birds and the bees, when 2 people love each other very much, and he'd go on like a whole tangent, and then he'd very much imply that, he'd take everybody out to the parking lot, and they would have a demonstration of the birds and the bees. And he never did. And he owes a lot of fans, a lot of things, and a lot of parking lots. And one day they will cash in, but that will not be today. And I don't think it ever will be, but you can hope.
Yeah.
And then another thing, which there's a video of this all over, is that the papas dance, but they dance like a white man.
I mean, they are Scandinavian.
They are. You
don't get much whiter.
Yeah. So there's a lot of twirling. There's a lot of wobbling. Because of all of the twirling, Terzo had quite literally worn a hole in his shoe, like at the ball of his foot. And he just points it out in the middle of the show. He just goes, I have a hole in my shoe. And he just talks about it for like 3 minutes about how he bought new shoes, so it's okay because he's got a hole in this one, but this is the last time he'll have to wear them. Like, buddy, do we need to pitch you a few bucks? Do you need like a buck from every member of the audience? I sure hope he doesn't, because the merch prices are outrageous, and I pay them, but they're outrageous. It's like $30 a shirt, and I love them. But God, I'm so broke.
Mood.
There's some iconic merch. Real fans know the most iconic piece of merch, which I literally cannot even talk about on a podcast or anything because it is very not safe for work. But you can run with your imagination, and you'll probably guess what it is, and you will be correct. So yeah, that exists, and you can buy them on eBay, but they are not being sold officially anymore, and they are very expensive because there are very few of them.
Oh, I can imagine.
You can imagine, and you will be correct, like I said. So, this is like the big controversy that happens in Ghost, is you are either on one side of this controversy or you are on the other. There is no middle ground. I'm sure there are people who are in the middle ground. I just haven't seen a lot of them. So, in 2016, one of the ghouls, Omega, left Ghost to pursue his own band. I believe it's Magna Carta Cartel, but I might be wrong. He was in Ghost for 7 years. He was a fan favorite. He was great. Everybody loved him, but he wanted to do his own thing, so he left, which is fine. The problem is that the 4 remaining ghouls went to Tobias Forge and wanted to renegotiate their contracts and their royalties because Omega left the band. In this, they didn't entirely read the contract that Forge brought to them, which included the new rates for royalties they wanted, yes, but also included a hard out date that they didn't read or didn't care or whatever. So when that hard out date came several months later, they left the band, and not very long later, they sued Tobias Forge because they believed that he had lied significantly about the amount of revenue they made, and thus their like royalty checks should have been way higher, right?
Yeah.
So this trial starts in 2017, I believe. It's called the Ghost Lawsuit, and this is what unmasks all of the ghouls and Papa. Before this, we had no idea who Papa was. We learned the names of the 4 ghouls who were suing, and we learn the name of Omega, who is not involved with the lawsuit. Omega's fine. Go support his band. We love him. We support Omega. He's great. The 4 ghouls involved in the lawsuit bring their case. They go to trial for several months. And it drags on for a while until it was dismissed in late 2018. The 4 ghouls owed Tobias Forge roughly $130,000 in American money. just in legal fees. And there was a little bit more for, like, you know, the hassle of having to go through the trial.
Yeah.
But the fans are kind of split. I think the group that supports the lawsuit ghouls is far, far smaller than the group that supports Tobias. I hate Reddit, but there's a whole Reddit r/ghost_lawsuit where you can read the translated trial reports, everything. You can read everything for yourself. You can make your own opinion. That's fine. I'm on the side of Tobias Forge. I think that he was fine. It was well within his right. Some people think that he was just kind of rude about it, but was in the right, and I don't care. Overall, he's a pretty fine dude. I mean, it's great. But I'm not gonna, like, idolize him and say that he's never done anything kind of dickish. But yeah, that was like a whole thing for such a long time. And it was a whole thing. It was wild. It was wild. And it's wild looking back on it, and it's wild, like, sort of having to, like, unearth all of this evidence and and try and, like, find sort of, like, non-biased people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think that you have to look into the lawsuit, especially if you don't want to unmask people, because obviously their real names are there, but, you know, if you find it interesting, then it's something to look into.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah. So, during the lawsuit and after whatever, September 30th, 2017, Terzo was doing the last show of the tour, and he was dragged off stage in the middle of the last song by two members of the clergy. This is, like, the first time that we've seen, like, a violent, like, removal. Like, before this, obviously Primo had, like, chosen to step down, and Secundo was fired, but that was, like, mostly off screen, and he still kind of passed it on, like, you know, kind of amicably, right?
Yeah.
Terzo was dragged off stage, like, full body, by these two burly men. And it was, like, several minutes before something happened, and the crowd had no idea. And here we see the first time Papa Nil. He's a decrepit old man. He's got a cane. He's got an oxygen tank and, like, an oxygen mask. And beside him is Sister Imperator, who was his, like, girlfriend in the 60s, and they're still, like, kind of in an off-again, on-again relationship where they hate each other and love each other. And they both kind of run the church in conjunction, where Papa Nil is Papa, right? He is, like, the figurehead and the front of the church and all of this stuff. Sister Imperator runs the clergy, right? She handles the day-to-day. She does a lot of, like, the big decisions, but she does it from the shadows. So these two appear on stage, and they announce I can't remember if it was in Latin or Italian, that Nil says, "The party is over, the Middle Ages have begun." And the concert ends. That's it. No new Papa is announced to lead the band for several months. We have no news. So from September to April 2018, we have no idea what's going to happen with Ghost. In April 2018, this is the start of the fourth era prequel. We get new ghouls, which I'll talk about soon, but because of the lawsuit, we get all new ghouls. Notably, we get a new series on the Ghost YouTube channel. They start a series called The Chapters. And these are still going on today, which is why, like, all of this lore could be renounced in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So the chapters start in 2018. They released the first one, and it shows off parts of the Satanic Church, which is just the location is just a mausoleum that's in California, and that's like their set. It's very cool. You can go and visit there. Obviously, be very respectful because it is a mausoleum. But it's a very beautiful place, and all of the videos are very beautiful. So they start these videos, and chapter 1, they're talking about how they need a new papa, they need young blood, they need fresh blood. Neil is like, oh, I can go out and I can be papa again. I can be the front man. I can do this. And Sister Imperator is like, no, you're like 100 years old, Neil. You can't do this. You have an oxygen tank. So, in chapter 2, which is the important chapter, chapter 2 is called The Cardinal. And in this, we are introduced to Cardinal Copia, who becomes the frontman of the band. And this is the first time that a non-papa has become the frontman of the band. And during Copia's leadership, the church is kind of still being run by Nil and Imperator. Like, he's not the head of the church, because Nil has no faith in Copia, since Copia is not of the papal bloodline. There are some theories. Some people say he's for sure Sister Imperator's son, and that's why she does the things she does. Some people say that he's even Nil's son, and a few other things. Like, there's a whole bunch of theories about Copia and who he actually is and past, but what we know is that Nil believes that Copia is not of the bloodline, and so he had no faith in Copia, and he didn't want him to become Papa. But Nil, like I said, is 100, and he's not popping out new kids. So,
I mean, he could.
But it still would take like 20 years, and he's not gonna reach 120. He's not gonna.
Yeah.
So, Copia becomes the frontman of the band, and in chapter 3, Back on the Road, we get the most heartbreaking chapter of all time, and it hurts me to watch because I had to rewatch it for this. Directly after the events of chapter 2, Sister Imperator and Papa Nil go to the three brothers, Primo, Secundo, and Terzo, who are playing Uno in like a dark room in the church, and it's wild, but you know what? They can do what they want. And Sister Imperator announces that the brothers are going back on tour permanently. They take this as they are going to be Papa. They're going to sing again. They are going to perform again. Sister Imperator closes the door, and we see them sit down again, and in the background, behind Terzo, a ghoul comes and injects a needle into his neck, killing him. All three of the previous Papas are murdered by Sister Imperator, embalmed and put on display in clear acrylic coffins for the VIP experience, the Veneration of Relics, which you can still look at if you buy VIP tickets.
Well, that's horrifying.
It's awful. It's horrible. It sucks so much. And these are like, especially like Terzo, because he was like Tumblr sexy manified. People are like horrified. Like these are like fan favorite characters, and I don't know. It hurts so much, even though I know that Tobias Forge is just like, he, I will kill off the Papas. And this means like nothing to him. Like he could just be like, I'm done with them. But I just love them so much, and they're just like my old man. They're like my old. They're like my pop. They're like my real fathers. I'm like I would do so much to be like hang out with them one day. You know what I mean?
This sounds like
Because they're just
this sounds like the beginning of one of those really old, like, like the fanfics on Wattpad where you get sold to One Direction or
oh my
something.
god, no! No, I don't want to be sold to the satanic church. I just want to
I'm
drink wine with
sorry.
Secundo and bitch. I just want to complain about things and gossip while getting drunk on wine, okay? With this aggressively Italian man who looks like Pitbull. I forgot to mention that Secundo looks exactly like Pitbull. It's not even like an in-joke to call him Mr. Worldwide. We just call him Mr. Worldwide. He's great. I love him.
Aww.
I also love Primo. They didn't deserve to die, and that's the saddest part, okay? They just didn't deserve to die.
Of course not.
So, Prequel is released on June 1st, 2018, and they soon start this tour cycle, during which they release a 2-song EP based off of, which is supposed to be a re-release of 2 of the songs that Nil performed in the 1960s, which is obviously all in universe. So the EP contains Kiss the Go-Goat and the now very famous Mariana Cross, which, you know, if you've gone on TikTok at all this last month, has blown up. It's everywhere. It was everywhere forever. And they even talk about it in their latest chapter video, is that, like, Neil is bragging about how his song went popular again. Yeah, and that EP is... Did I say what it was called? 7 Inches of Satanic Panic. Which... It's such a name. It's awful. It's great. I love it. The first ghost shirt I got was the album art of that EP, it's beautiful. It's like pure psychedelic rock art. It's fantastic.
The best kind.
So, Mariana Cross, like, shot them into fame, obviously, very recently. You know, they hit some great #1 charts again. They made some great progress from that. But at the time, it was like kind of, you know, lukewarm reception. It was a good EP. The fans love it, but it didn't like, you know, it didn't like receive a lot of like other attention.
Yeah.
So yeah, they do the prequel tour, and on March 3rd, 2020, in Mexico. So like just imagine like the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 24 hours remain before COVID like meme. Like, this is how early we are. Like, this is like right on the edge of COVID. They do the show in Mexico, and Nil dies on stage. He's just dead. And so Copia comes out, and he realizes this is his ascension. It is time for Copia to become Papa. And in this, he becomes Papa Emeritus IV, and a new era begins. Welcome to the current era.
Finally.
So this era started obviously with Kobe's ascension in March 2020, but because of COVID, nothing really happened for a while. They couldn't tour. They didn't really release anything. It kind of sucked.
Yeah.
So they're only recently starting to recover. They did a few TV performances during COVID, but overall, like, they didn't really do anything. The Impera tour cycle started in January 25th, 2022. So, like, quite literally, like, this was very recent. And the album was released March 11th. So, Impera actually very, very quickly shot up to be number one in, like, several charts. And got, like, the most, like, outreach, I would say, from the several albums. Like, this is their biggest album. I really love Impera. I think it's the best album, or maybe the second best. Meloria is also a beautiful album. I will say, I'm very biased. I don't think that there is a bad Ghost song. There are some bands where I cannot listen to, like, half the discography and I still love them. Like, they're beautiful, they're fantastic, they have some great songs, but I literally cannot listen to, like, half of their songs because they're just not that great. Ghost is not one of those. I will listen to every single Ghost song except for the remixes, which I just don't like because I don't like the remixes. I don't know what they did. They put, like, pure beauty and talent into this song. Into every single one. It's beautiful.
I'm glad.
It's so good. And because every song is so good and every album is so good, it is a constant fight with the fans to rank them because it's never still. Nobody's favorite song is their favorite song for long. It changes all the time. Like, it'll go from Cirrus to Majesty to He Is to Year Zero to anything. It'll be 17 different songs. And all of them are very valid. I didn't like Genesis for a while, but it's really grown on me recently. Like, obviously I still have my gripes with the albums. I think the mixing on some of them and the mastering on some of them are just not very well done, especially Impera. Not Impera, especially Infest. I think it feels a little poorly mixed, but the songs and overall, it's not so bad that, like, I can't still have a fantastic time. So yeah, so right now we're on the Impera era, which is god awful to say. Era Impera, and we're about to get another Europe tour announced, which fans are waited with bated breath. We've got a few things announced. We've got some festival announcements and stuff like that, but we haven't gotten, like, the chapter video that'll announce the tour. So that is what we are waiting for.
Yeah.
So other than that, that's all the eras. Do you have any questions about the eras? Because that was a lot.
It is a lot. Which means that basically I can't think of any questions.
Okay. Well, that's fine, because I really tried to, like, go over, like, the big parts.
You were very comprehensive.
So, several times in this I've talked about the ghouls.
Yes.
And it's time to talk about the ghouls.
It is time to talk about the ghouls.
And I already know your first question. What is a ghoul?
Yes.
What is a ghoul? Here's my answer. Nobody fucking knows what a ghoul is. Nobody knows what the ghouls are. We don't know. We have so many questions. So most fans believe that the ghouls are just, like, hellspawn. They're, like, essentially demons or something like that. But they are almost never mentioned in canon. They are. Remember how I told you how the brothers were killed by a ghoul?
Yes.
That is the only time we see a ghoul in the lore videos. That is it. They come in, they kill the brothers, and that is it. we haven't seen a ghoul other than that. Now, we do see the ghouls in the music videos, because obviously they are playing their instruments.
Yep.
On stage, because they are playing their instruments, and at award shows. The other place we see ghouls is in interviews before 2017. There are still some, I believe, like group interviews at award shows and stuff like that, where sometimes the ghouls are there. But overall, it's mostly Tobias Forge himself that does the interviews now. But before the lawsuit, one ghoul did the interviews, and his name was Special. He was the special ghoul.
Aww.
Special ghoul was special because he got to talk. That was it. None of the other ghouls really talk, even at award shows. They didn't really talk at the Grammys. They just look there and they look stoic and they look like little demons and we love them. And they're very intimidating, except they're not because they're little goofballs. So, Special was special. He got to talk at interviews, and also very notably at one interview, the interviewers gave him a name tag like "Hi, my name is," and they filled it in with the name Phil. So now sometimes Special gets called Phil, and we love him. And surprise, surprise, the man behind the mask was Tobias Forge. He was the one doing all the interviews. And because of the lawsuit, because he was unmasked in the lawsuit, Tobias Forge has not used Special since then, which is a disgrace, because I love Special, and I want Tobias Forge to bring him out of the basement, stop locking him up in there, and let him do interviews again. It was the only thing that brought him joy.
Poor Special.
Poor Special. Poor Phil. We love Phil. So, like I said, the ghouls are not very much in canon, but the fans love them. And in my eyes, and for simplicity, there are two sets of ghouls. Like, there are two main sets, and then there are some little minor ghouls that pop in. So, first we're going to talk about the old ghouls. They're very easy. They set up the naming conventions for the ghouls. So each one is named after one of the four elements. So you have fire, water, earth, air. And then they had a fifth ghoul, and they named it after ether or quintessence. Nobody has decided which one it is, and they switch all the time. So some people call it ether, some people call it a quintessence. Either one are valid. Each of these elements has an alchemical symbol that they would often display. Sometimes it was part of the actual costume, sometimes it was part of, like, something else, right? It was just like all over. You would find these alchemical elements and these alchemical symbols. And each element was tied to a specific role in the band. So, fire was lead guitar, ether was rhythm guitar, water was bass, air is keys, and earth is drums. And that classification continues to this day, so we can very easily, like, name new members. Yes, so the old Fire, who was involved in the lawsuit, put the alchemical symbol for fire on his guitar, which, if you didn't know what that looks like, it's just a normal equilateral triangle, just pointing up. And some fans thought it looked like the Greek alpha symbol, so he got the nickname Alpha. Ether, who was the other guitarist, put an omega symbol on his guitar, so fans call him Omega. Air, Water, and Earth never did this, and I don't think got very many nicknames, so they're just kind of consistent. I've already talked about Special, because he's my very special boy. He was never on stage, because obviously, like I said, that was Tobias Forge, and Tobias Forge was always playing Papa. So you can't play two people when you have one body.
Yeah. That
So
tends to be how it works.
yeah. So like I said earlier, Omega left the band, and then Alpha, Water, Air, and Earth are the ones involved in the lawsuit. Um, so yes. So because of the lawsuit, obviously all of those guys were gone, and we needed new ghouls. So here are the new ghouls. Long gone are the days of 5 ghouls. Today we have 8. We have 8 ghouls now. And you might ask, how do we have 3 more ghouls? Do we have 3 more elements? No, we just name multiple things. So obviously the fans can't call these ghouls fire, earth, water, air, right?
No.
So because that would get confusing because they're already nameless and faceless. So we have to have something to distinguish them. So I'm gonna go over the easy ones first, and then I'm gonna have to go over the ones that have like an explanation. So we have Mountain on drums, obviously, that's Earth. Aether is rhythm guitar. He's Ether with an A, which makes him fancy and special. Rain is on bass. And then Cumulus and Cirrus are both types of clouds, and they're air. And they are also the 2 ghoulettes. They were not the first ghoulettes, but they were the first 2 in this era. We'll talk about the 3rd ghoulette in a minute. We love them. The ghoulettes are very special. They're beautiful. We love them. They're fantastic.
Yes.
So the next ghoul in the new era is lead guitar, which, if we go off the name convention, should be a fire name. He does not have a fire name. His name is Dewdrop, or Dew. And before anybody who knows ghosts and is like a TikTok fan yells at me and says, you should not call him Dew, there is a controversy going around somewhat recently that the person behind the mask who plays Dew doesn't like the name Dew. This is not true. This is not confirmed. But fans on TikTok, after Mariana Cross blew up, kind of someone like came up with this idea that Dew had said something on social media which he doesn't have and doesn't use, that he doesn't like the name because it started in a fan fiction that was like sexual, which I'm about to tell you right now, 90% of the ghost fan fictions are rated E on Archive of Our Own.
And of course it was
So
TikTok that made this whole thing up.
Yes, so TikTok made up this name, this thing that he doesn't like the name, and that you should instead call him Sodo. Sodo is short for sodomizer, which is more sexual because of the inherent nature of the word sodomizer. And and people say that he likes that name more because he has it tattooed across his stomach, but that is a name from a different band. That's like a name that he uses not as a ghoul. So I don't like using that name for him when he's a ghoul because it feels like unmasking him. It feels like you're crossing those lines, and I don't know. I like to call him Dew. I think it fits better. It's the older name. It's I don't know. It's more satisfying. I'm not gonna switch, but I'm not gonna be like, you shouldn't use Soto. I just think it's dumb that people argue that you shouldn't use Dew.
Yeah.
So yeah. So until I say something actually from Dew about not liking the name, I'm gonna keep using it. And you can cancel me about that. But you know what? I'm not gonna be angry about it. So I kind of lied earlier when I told you that there were no new elements. But this isn't really an element, okay? So I didn't lie, and I'm still a good person. The other 2 ghouls are not a new element. They are called multi-ghouls. It started out and it was just Swiss during the prequel era. during the prequel era, not area. And he was called a multi-ghoul because he did vocals and some guitar and also some tambourine, and that was like several different roles. So they were like, oh, but what element is he? He's like not any element, so he's like multiple. So that's why he's the multi-ghoul. And his name is Swiss, not based off of the cheese, but based off the Swiss Army knife.
Okay.
Because it's a multi-tool. Ha. We love him. But in this newest era, in Era 5, they added one new ghoul, the third ghoulette, Sunshine, who is also a multi-ghoul. She does tambourine vocals and keys. So...
Wait, tambourine?
Yes, there are several tambourine players in this band. At any given point, there's like 3 tambourines being played. That is not an exaggeration. In total, the new batch of ghouls and the current batch of ghouls are Aether, Rain, Dew, Swiss, Mountain, and the girls Cumulus, Cirrus, and Sunshine. Most of them have like 12 other names, but these are the most common ones, so live with it. If you don't like the names, pick your own. I have seen some wild posts where people are just like, this is Incendo, and that's what I call Dew. And I'm like, why? But you know what? Do you. I don't care. It just seems like a hassle. So, yes, tambourine. I'm gonna get on about the tambourine. Ghost is a metal band. Yes?
Yes.
Also, no. Ghost is frequently described as Scooby-Doo chase music, and it is disturbingly very correct. I have personally described Ghost as if you took like 20 different music genres, shoved them into a trench coat, metal would be like the face, and that's it. It's beautiful, but there is a reason why most like hardcore metalheads don't like Ghost and don't think that it's metal, and they're very valid for that, but it is metal and it's not metal at the same time. It's great and we love it. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is just, I mean, I could talk about this for like 4 hours. I really could do like 12 episodes on this. But the last thing I want to talk about now is Tobias Forge himself. Not a lot, because like I said, I haven't pried into his life. And I'm not really inclined to pry into his life. But like just some little information about him. Tobias Forge is 41. Like I said, he was Swedish. And before Ghost, he was in several bands. I think somewhere he said that he'd either been starting bands since he was like 12, or he's been in like 12 different bands. He's been in a bunch, but some of the bigger ones are Repugnant and Crash Diet. And he used the name Mary Gore as a stage name for a while. Forge is married to Bowl. We love her. And he has 2 daughters, his twins. And his daughters, we don't know a lot about them because Forge himself is very sheltered from social media. And obviously he doesn't want his family exposed to that because that's just who he is, and he's great, and that's a good decision. But his daughters are featured in some Ghost songs, which is why we know about them. He's brought them on stage a couple times just to be like, look at my daughters, I love them so much. He's a great man. He's a great, family dad. His daughters are in the chapter videos a couple times. But most notably, they are... The first song in the prequel album is called Ashes, and it's got, the Ring Around the Rosie rhyme. And his daughters are the ones that sing it. And in the chapter videos, they act like the twins from The Shining, and it's great. We love them. They're fantastic. This is all like very surface information. You can get more into it or less into it. There's hundreds of hours of interviews you can look into. He literally just did an interview again last night. Um, but there's it's great. This man pumps out so much like content and information all the time. It's crazy, and he's very talented. Wikipedia credits him as having vocals, guitar, bass, drums, keyboard, and kazoo skills. Which I don't know if you have to have a lot of skill to play a kazoo. We love the Kazoo of Destiny. I want the Kazoo of Destiny to come back. I want Copia to play the Kazoo of Destiny. When will that happen, huh? Everyone's got all these theories right now that Terza is going to come back to life. I don't want that. I want Copia to play the kazoo, and then I'll be satisfied. And then, like, right when he's finished with the song, he can die, and that'll be fine. That'll be fine. I'd be satisfied with that.
All about those fulfilling narrative arcs.
Yeah. Well, Kobe's gonna die one day. They all do. They all do. And even if he doesn't die, he's gonna have to step down. And even though Copia is like my favorite Papa, I love him so much. He's great. I love his personality. I love how much personality we actually get to see. Yeah, but he's just, it's the nature of the beast. You don't get into this band thinking that the front man is going to last very long.
Like Wars of the Roses, but metal band.
Oh no, oh no. Oh my god. I think that's it for today. I honestly quite literally could go on for forever, but I think that's a good place to wrap up.
Yeah, maybe. You've been very comprehensive. You've gone through like everything to the point where I don't think I could think of any questions if I tried. So that's a good sign. I know what band I will be recommending to the sibling.
You should. I love it. Depends on how old they are.
Well, it's a younger sibling, but very into rock and metal bands last I checked, so.
Oh, yeah. No, I really could do like a whole other episode just talking about like the theories the fandom currently has and like just the chapter videos. Like I talked about obviously chapter 1, 2, and 3, but there are 14 of them. I'm telling you, man, there's so much to this band, and I've been like in depth looking at everything for like 3 months, and there's like an endless well of content, but that comes with the caveat that like 4% of it is like real canon because Tobias Forge feeds us little table scraps. And that's it. So, yeah. So everything I tried to say today is as canon as I like possibly can. I tried not to like talk about too many of the headcanons because again we could be here forever. So yeah. So I'll really try to get all of the stuff that is like confirmed. This is what we know. For sure, from Tobias.
To clarify for the audience, we are recording this in November. By the time this airs, you never know. All this information could have been debunked.
It could be very debunked. It could be so debunked. There are 14 chapters now, and I suspect that the 15th is going to come out very soon to announce the tour dates, and that could change everything.
We'll just have to have you back again some other time to talk about the rest of it.
Oh, we have to. I'm hopefully going to be back to talk about a billion and one different things.
Oh,
But
definitely. This has
Jess,
been great.
Jess, how do we wrap this up? Can always do the classic music and fade. Although that
Yes.
takes a little editing for that.
I still feel like we need to say goodbye somehow.
I do feel like we need to
And
say
thank
goodbye.
people for
Okay.
listening to us rambling for several hours.
Yeah, so thank you very much for listening to me talk about Ghost, because this was, hey, I like Ghost. I'm Pluto,
And I'm Jess.
and have a nice day. Bye.
Yes. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much for listening. If you've made it all the way to the end, congrats! You are officially much stronger than half of our friends. If you are enjoying listening to this podcast, please subscribe to get notified when we update, or follow us on Tumblr at HeyILike, all lowercase. That's all for now. See you next time on Hey, I Like.